What's going on, dude?
What is up, my friend?
Not a whole lot, man. It's just you and me. It's like old times.
Yeah, we're hashtag richless.
Yeah, we're richless again.
I've got to do that every time too. I can't, even though we're not recording video, I always do the finger hashtag richless. Richless.
yeah. Now he'll be back around, and I actually would love to get his input on our topic tonight. Which you threw at my way and our Rich's way as well. But man, it's Nintendo Switch related. And we're kind of bid adieu, I guess, to the very reverent system that has I don't know, sold a ton of units, really.
Yeah. It's sold a ton of units. It's been more popular than I think Nintendo could have hoped or imagined when they announced it. It definitely made up for the failings of the Wii U. And it's the games have run the gamut, everything from your standard Nintendo fare like Mario Party and Mario Kart and stuff and Zelda to games like Night Trap.
yeah. No, you're not wrong. We've talked about that a couple times, and it's the Switch it's been a funny system. It's been innovative. We've talked about the Labo a couple of different times over the years, and some of the really neat features and some of the really outside the box things. It's like, oh, hey, I'm going to buy this cardboard kit that comes with another type of game, if you will, that shows you how to put things together, and I can put my Joy-Con, the controller, into a little piece of cardboard that I fashioned into an insect or whatever that was, and make it vibrate and move across the floor.
Right.
It's very outside the box things, very cool. I think the one thing that I always look at Nintendo on is the hardware. It's really always going to be hard to compare them to Sony and Microsoft, respectively, just because of where their hardware is at. But Nintendo caters to a completely different audience. It's always about creativity and fun and their IP and just really bringing people back to having fun gaming. I mean, that's what Nintendo does.
Right. No, absolutely. So with that in mind, I had proposed to you to put together a list of your 10 favorite Switch games, and I did the same. And so I figured it'd be cool, we can go back and forth and kind of talk about them and see which ones we match up on and which ones, maybe we've heard of or haven't tried, that kind of stuff. So
yeah. Do you want to dive into the list, or do you want to kind of talk honorable mentions first? Or
I honestly, I tried to, for once, I tried to stick to the actual thing and not do any honorable mentions.
And just do 10. Okay, well, I'll just burn through mine real quick then, because we might have there's one that we may have a commonality here that might have hit your list. But other than that, I just have to give a shout out to their online service with the NES, the Super Nintendo, the Game Boy, 64, Genesis, and so forth. It actually brought me back to loving a couple of different games that I loved before, but never just hadn't played in a while, or didn't own the physical copy, or I might have played a ROM or something. It just wasn't the same experience. And so I can say that for River City Ransom and Columns, the puzzle game for the Genesis, and then the original Donkey Kong, just made me kind of rekindle my love for all those games. And then kind of falling in that same regard, I fell in love with playing Wario's Woods, that late puzzle game for the NES. I absolutely have spent way too much time playing that game, but it's so enjoyable, and it's such a different spin on where puzzle games were at the time. Really enjoy that one. And then recently they added Donkey Kong 94 for the Game Boy, and I've really enjoyed that. That was a game I never really played. I mean, I played a ton of Donkey Kong and different versions thereof, but never that one. Never owned it. And so really have enjoyed that. So I just got to give a shout out. They did a great job with their online services. Do I wish every game was available? Absolutely. But I obviously realize that that's not the case. That's never going to be the case. And I think they've done a nice job with, doing what they did, getting that out there outside of having to pay for it.
Right. So no. So I'll jump on that too. And while you were talking, I did think of a couple that I'll throw on as an honorable mention. But definitely second you on the the Nintendo Online games. I've been able to play some games that are cost prohibitive to own, stuff that I've wanted to play but never have, that kind of stuff. But in addition to that, I'm going to give them a shout out for ARMS, which was a launch title or very close to launch and showed off what the Joy-Cons could do. I'm going to give a shout out to Pokemon Scarlet, which should be fixed by the Switch 2 version that is coming out. They're coming out with a patch for it for the Switch 2, so it should make it run the way that it was probably meant to run.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to give a shout out. I forgot what the other one. Oh, Ring Fit Adventure, which was really cool. Really innovative, really cool game.
100% agree to that. To me, that took everything that was pretty decent about the Wii Fit and just upped the game. Just thought it was a lot better presentation. And quite honestly, I think you could really have a bigger audience playing Ring Fit than you could previously. And it was a good price point too for what that was, because really it's just a resistance band. So you're paying for the game, and you're basically the game. If you take that for what it is, $50, and then you're into it for another $20 for the resistance band, which I thought was actually a decent price point for what that was. The others that aren't on those online services, so to speak, that I kind of did not include in my top 10. I became a big fan of Distropolis, which was a free download several years ago through a independent game publisher over Christmas. They had like an advent calendar thing where they were giving away a game every 2 days, and I happened to jump on all of them. 11 of those 12 games were pretty trash, or at least something that I wouldn't go back to play. But that one out of the 12 was amazing. That was Distropolis. It's just a nice little quick polygon shooter, fun multiplayer game. I've absolutely loved it. It's got a cool like synthy drum and bass type, aesthetic to it as far as the soundtrack goes, and it's just a fun game, and it keeps cool leaderboards too. So it keeps leaderboards for you against, and see where you fall with your all-time score against other people on around the world in single-player mode, two-player mode, three-player mode, so forth. So just a really cool game. I've enjoyed that one a lot. And the one that did not make my top 10 that I played a ton of was Super Mario Party. Played an absolute ton of it. Didn't cross my top 10 because I had others that I felt were there. It was real close. And I'm talking about the Super Mario Party, not Jamboree.
Right.
And I think because I really, really love the teamwork games in that, the river raft and so forth. It just really great concepts on that. And so, I really desperately wanted to include it top 10 wise, but I just couldn't fit it in there.
So now I guess I'll start with the list, and this is in no particular order, but Super Mario Party is on my list.
I kind of figured it was, and I was almost there. So yeah, go for it, man. What did you love about that game?
I liked so Peyton and I would play the team, like you said, the team games. And so where you would have the two characters, you would both roll your dice, add it together, and then you would move that many spots. Peyton and I absolutely loved that, and we played the heck out of it. So that was definitely a mode that it more than paid for the cost of the game, and I ended up getting that as part of one of the packages that came with a set of Joy-Cons. So I paid,
cool.
Depending upon how you want to look at it, I either paid $10 for the game or full price for the game and $30 for the Joy-Cons.
Yeah, which is, talk about the price of Joy-Cons. I mean, you're into it for $75-$80 just for a set of Joy-Cons.
Right.
Nowadays anyway. And that we're just talking regular Switch here. We're not talking Switch 2. But no, it's crazy. And no, I absolutely love that game. Look, you and I grew up playing the different Mario parties over the years, and we've played every iteration darn near together at some point or another. And this was a great installment. I enjoyed this one better than I did Jamboree. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy Jamboree. But but not as much as I did this one. So yeah, definitely,
Right.
certainly a top 10 worthy game. It was like which one am I going to bump out? And I had a hard time doing that. So,
All right. What was your what's the first one you want to go with?
yeah. So again, no particular order. I'm just going to go Animal Crossing: New Horizons. I think, it was a game that my whole family fell in love with. It came out during the, perfect and worst time.
Yeah.
So we were all kind of cooped up and whatever. And, what better to play a game like Animal Crossing? I mean, and so it was cool to have, your established island, and then like my kids would pop on and do their things, set up their houses. And then, the only thing we kind of grew weary of it over time was because it hinged upon having a primary. And our primary was not me. Our primary was the youngest of the household.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. And at the time, he was like 6 or 7. So, you know how that goes.
Yeah.
But it was still a great experience. Had a ton of fun with it. He's actually picked it back up here time and again within the last few months, because he still likes to, kind of, mess around with it. But I enjoyed it. It was really one of the first times I really dove super deep into an Animal Crossing game. I never really had before. So
I'm gonna retroactively add that to my honorable mention, because I did the same thing, during pandemic. I think everybody did pretty much, dove into that game. And actually back over the summer, before the hurricane hit here, I had been playing the heck out of it too. And then the hurricane hit, and it was kind of hard to really play because no power. And I didn't want to run my batteries down and my backup batteries down on that. So
yeah, right.
It kind of fell off a little bit, and then just never really went back. But yeah, great game, absolutely great game.
Yeah, man, I thoroughly enjoyed it. But anyhow, go. So what's up on your next one on your list, man?
Luigi's Mansion 3.
Nice.
And that was a game, again, a multiplayer game. You had Luigi, and Peyton and I played that. We actually beat it together and got all the DLC too, which was cool because there was like an air hockey game, and there was some other cool little multiplayer like mini game things that you could do. And we just had a lot of fun with it. It didn't really break the mold when it came to the Luigi's Mansions games. It's kind of stuck to the tried and true formula, but it was a really good game, and we had a lot of fun with it. Definitely got our money's worth out of it.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you said what you said. Didn't break away from the formula. That game didn't need to either. It kind of perfected, what was already great about that series. Just a fun game. They didn't really steer from anything. I thoroughly enjoyed that one too, and so did my kids, more so than I did on that one. I enjoyed it too. I just really didn't play a whole lot of it compared. They were kind of system hogging at that point. So, I'm
playing the Karate Kid Catch the Fly and the Chopsticks game.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're playing like the real life game.
Yeah.
But no, I enjoyed that one too. Next one on mine, I've got Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. Again, a big Donkey Kong fan, and this was like, another great platformer in my opinion for them. And it was cool too because it was a game that I picked up and played it with the kids, played with my mother-in-law, and then she ended up fell in love with it and picked up a copy of it herself. And it was just like that game. And unfortunately, I have the new Donkey Kong Country that was released, for the Switch not that long ago. And Tommy was gung-ho about it. And he is not as quite of a fan of that one as he was A, Tropical Freeze, and B, the original Donkey Kong Country for the Super Nintendo. So that's why I kind of used that mentality with it. It's like, well, he was like, I don't know. And I'm like, dude, like, this is a fun game, but that's, I get it. I played a lot more Tropical Freeze, and I played a lot more of the original actually on the Switch Online service with him. So Tropical Freeze has to get a spot on my top 10 for that reason.
All right. Dude, as we talk, I'm remembering games, and I'm gonna no, I can't do that. I wanted to throw a game in and bump one of these games to an honorable mention, or maybe throw another honorable mention in, but I'm trying to stick to the formula for once.
I was going to say, when did we ever do that? You might as well just.
Well, screw it. Yeah. So I'm going to throw my honorable mention in here. Let's go Pokemon Let's Go Eevee, which basically reimagined the original, like red, blue, and yellow. But I guess basically more it was yellow that it reimagined, because you were able to do all the things you were able to do in yellow, which you couldn't do in blue and green, or blue and red. It was green in Japan, not red. But anyway, let me stop rambling here. But Pokemon Let's Go Eevee, it was really cool. It was a newer art style. It was one of the first games that was basically integrated with Pokemon Go, which it essentially was Pokemon Go friendly. It was just really fun. It had a little gimmick where you would have it. You could get a little Pokeball controller, and you would act like you were throwing the Pokeball to try to catch the Pokemon. And if you didn't have that, you had to use your Joy-Con and act like you were throwing a ball at it. And it was just really cool. So
yeah, no, I never played it, but my kids did. I actually have that Pokeball and Let's Go Eevee. That's the one. That's the one that Katie wanted. Yeah, the Pokeball sits by my TV and has for probably ever since the game came out. Like I said, I have things that are probably actually sought after, but they're not really mine or the kids. So but I remember watching her play because she really loved the Pokemon games, and that was one she was a big fan of. And she was also a big fan of Shield. She really liked that one. Never cracked into Sword, but played the crap out of Shield, which I thought was funny, but I know how Pokemon can be at times.
Yeah.
But no, neither here nor there. No, I always thought that little accessory was cool.
Yeah, it was cool. And it worked with Pokemon Go. If you connected it to Pokemon Go, or was it if you connected it to Pokemon Go, or if you connected it to one way or the other, there was a Mew in it, which is extremely hard to get if you honestly, if you didn't hack the game like the original games, you could not get Mew. Gotcha. Unless you went to a special event at Toys R Us. Rest in peace.
Yeah. Hey, they're making a comeback, man.
Oh, I hope so. I miss Toys R Us. But yeah, it's super cool. Everything about it was awesome. So let me move on to the next one that's actually on my list proper, which was Fire Emblem Engage. And I'm a sucker for all the Fire Emblem games, so obviously I had to throw that in here. And it was cool because it went back and it had a whole bunch of different characters from throughout the history of the series, and it brought them in as kind of like partners. So you had your main characters that you developed throughout the game, and then they could power up with the power of their partner and gain special abilities, and it made it, it was a cool game. It was a cool concept, cool game. Not my favorite Fire Emblem game, but still enough to make it on the list.
Gotcha. I kind of figured that you'd have some Fire Emblem entries on your list, so that is not surprising. And kind of likewise on my next one is Tears of the Kingdom. It's look, it's going to lead into another game on my list, which we'll probably just gloss over. But now, look, the Zelda games over the years have been, quite honestly, some of the most amazing games I've played. I've not fallen in love with every single one of them, and I don't think every person has, honestly, either. with how Nintendo talks about things with or how they do things with certain games. So I think we'll go all the way back to the original Nintendo to see that love-hate with between Zelda 1 and 2.
Right.
But I love Tears of the Kingdom. Again, they didn't really break away from the formula that made Breath of the Wild successful. It just made it, another fun entry into the series. I did not have as many hours sunk into Tears of the Kingdom as I did Breath of the Wild, but I still had enough to easily put that in my top 10.
So it's funny you say that, because Breath of the Wild was the next one on my list.
There you go. And I'll just knock that off mine. That's on mine as well, obviously. So
yeah.
So go for it. What's your take on Breath of the Wild then?
Oh, it was just, it was a launch game. It was the first game that I really played for the Switch, and it was my very first experience with the Switch was playing Breath of the Wild. And it was just amazing, to see how far the game had come from when, I pretty much bailed out when it was the 3D Zelda games. I played, trying to think of what was the one, Twilight Princess, but I didn't play it on the Switch or on the Wii. I played it on the GameCube. So that was the only 3D Zelda game that I had any real experience with until Breath of the Wild came out. And I was just blown away. Like, everything about it. The only thing that sucked was the weapons that were degradable. But aside from that, I absolutely love the game.
Yeah, there's a few things in that I wasn't a fan of, but no, it was funny because I remember when I first picked it up, I was like, this is exactly what I love to play. It was, to me, it was like Nintendo figured out how to make a Zelda Skyrim, which was very funny to me because when Skyrim did release for the Switch and you had the Breath of the Wild amiibos and you scanned them in Skyrim, you would get, the Hyrule armor, or, all the Master Sword or all that stuff that was related to Link. You could get that as weapons and armor in Skyrim, which I always thought was really cool little crossover.
Yeah.
But Breath of the Wild to me was just such a pretty game. The scenery was ridiculous. The sounds, even, the little cooking sound. I mean, to this day, I'm never going to be able to get that out of my head. Just and really, quite honestly, the quests and the storyline were great. I thought it was just they did a great job about it. And it's funny because I play that game so much, and then, I move on to things like Elden Ring, and I'm like, I really enjoy playing that. And it's a really pretty game, but it's like, gosh, I kind of wish I was playing Breath of the Wild again when I pick up things like that. So no, that's a definite. And if I were to really rank these, that's a top 3 for me for the Switch, without question. So, definitely me too, man. So go for your next one then, because that's actually another one on mine. So back to you.
So Super Mario Odyssey is next on my list. Did you have that one too?
Yeah, perfect. So you go, and then I'll speak on it.
So again, super fun. It broke quite a few molds actually for the 3D Mario games. It was really cool to be able to throw your hat and possess the different enemies and the different characters throughout. I thought that was a really cool mechanic. There were some fun jokes in it. Like, there was one of the moons you get, and it said, "What's in the box?" And that just, that cracked me up. So I was happy with that. And there were just cool little, it changed the way that you had to think about the game, because things that would be counterintuitive in other Mario games, it wanted you to do. Like, there were places where it wanted you to run off the edge, where it wanted you to drop down into a hole. And then you were like, oh, wow, wait, there's a whole special area in here. Okay, cool. So I thought it was just really cool, and it was really inventive the way that they did everything.
Yeah, the seamless interchanging from playing 3-dimensionally to classic 2-dimensional scroller, I thought was fantastic the way they did it. Because like you said, I'm just gonna, maybe not go down this pipe, but I'm gonna jump off this edge, or I'm gonna, maybe go around this corner. And it's like, oh wait, now I've got to play 2-dimensional old school. Like, what's going on? Like, I really love that. I love the fact that you could multiplayer with Cappy. Thought that was great. But no, just a fantastic, and really, truly, as far as the Switch games go, and as far as start to finish, like a fantastic game. Like I absolutely, I mean, without doubt, probably one of my favorite, maybe not just Switch games, honestly, but maybe one of my favorite games ever. And I'm not just talking Mario series, I'm talking flat out ever. Just it was just such a well done game. And that was the game I got for the Switch when I first picked it up. So I think that was kind of why I really fell in love with the system, was because of that game. Yeah, so I had Odyssey on mine too.
Okay.
So I guess that that goes right back to you then.
I'm noticing a trend here. So let's see. I'll go with another one. This one I'm pretty sure is not going to be in your list. And I debated putting it on my list because I was trying to stick with stuff that was just released for the Switch, but I played so many hours of it that I have to put it on here, and it's Dokapon Kingdom.
Yeah, no. So you're good. You're solo on this one.
So this game is a game that came out on the PS2, came out on the Wii, and it's a game that I had gotten because somebody was like, "Yo, you need to go get this game. It's only $20 at GameStop back when it was out on the Wii." And so I grabbed it, and they're like, "Okay, now that you got it, now go put it on eBay." I'm like, "Well, I just got it. Let me play it." And I looked on eBay, and it was selling for like an absurd amount of money. It was like 100 plus. And I'm like, "All right, well, I'm going to play it because I have it." So we ended up playing it, and it was so fun. It's an RPG / board game / screw your friends simulator. And it even says that on the back of the original packaging. You're trying to save the kingdom from this demon, and the king is this just incompetent fool, and he sends you on this errand to save the kingdom, and then promises you his daughter's hand in marriage after you banish the evil from the land. But it's super fun. You can play multiple different ways. There's a story mode, or there's like a tabletop mode. But what's cool about the Switch version is that it's actually allows you to play online. So you can play multiplayer online, which the other ones were all just couch co-op. I prefer the couch co-op because, it's more fun to look your friend in the eye as you twist the knife.
Yeah, exactly.
The next best thing, especially in post-COVID land, is being able to play across the internet. But the only complaint I have is that they did censor it quite a bit from the Wii and PS2 versions to the Switch version, where you used to be able to, one of the things you can do if you beat your friend in battle is you can change their name, and you used to be able to change it to whatever you wanted, and there was no content filter. So you can think of some of the names that got levied upon people. But unfortunately, now when you do it, it just automatically assigns a name. And there is a content filter for when you put your own name in. And then they change some of the sprites, which changing the sprites is no big deal. I don't really care about that. I don't need to see digital cleavage. It doesn't do it for me, But, if Rich was here, then that'd be a different story.
Yeah,
but
I was about to say, might for our partner, but
Yeah. But anyway, it's a really good game, and I highly recommend it to anyone who has not played it. It's getting rare, so snag it while you can before it becomes stupidly expensive like the other one is. Even the PS2 one, which I had a sealed copy of the PS2 one I got for $20, and it was, last time I looked, it was in the hundreds. So
which is
snag it while you can.
Crazy. All right, my next one I've got is Super Mario 35, which is a fun one for me because it was only out for 6 months. It was just a little battle royale platformer that was put out there to celebrate the 35th anniversary of Super Mario Brothers, and it was just, I don't know, I absolutely loved it, and it sucked because it was only out for 6 months, but it was just like a celebratory little freebie game. I love those battle royale type games. And it was a fun one. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And every once in a while, I still go over to my install and click to try to enter it, knowing full well that the server shut down 4 years ago. But
it's worth a shot. You never know.
Hope beyond hope. Maybe there's some disgruntled Nintendo employee is like, you know what? I'm firing this sucker up. I want to make some people happy today.
Yeah.
But no, it's I don't know. One of those where again it was October of 20 into 21, so a lot of time at home then, and again, perfect timing for someone like me who loves those type of games. I love those little battle royale games. So yeah, I had to put that on there. I just a lot of fond memories, and it sucks that I can't ever play it again.
Yes, no, I agree. All right, so next on mine is similar to Dokapon Kingdom, but more like one of my other favorite games that came out on the Wii, and I keep pounding the table for a remake, or another version. But Fortune Street, it's never going to come out ever again, so I need to get used to that. But we have this game called Billion Road, and Billion Road, I had to order through the devils that are limited run games. Yeah, so but I got it right away because it was done. It was just they were the shipping people for the States. But it's cool. It's like a board game with yokai. So for the uninitiated, yokai are Japanese monsters, ghosts, demons, kind of things. And they're, you go through and you have these different yokai with these different abilities, and your goal is to try to get somewhere else. And it uses a map of Japan for the board, and you're trying to get to different cities in Japan, and you buy properties. It's kind of like Monopoly with Japanese monsters, and it's fun.
Yeah, no, I know you're a huge Fortune Street person, so kind of it makes perfect sense for you to include Billion Road. That's I've not played Billion Road, so I don't know much about it, but it looks really, really cool. Like I do dig those type of games. My kids still every once in a while just pick up regular Monopoly on the Switch, so I enjoy the ones that throw different things in it. One of these days, I'm gonna have to dive in. All right. I'm gonna go and this is I guess this is kind of cheating in a way, but not so much. Diablo 2 Resurrected, and I say that I say cheating because Diablo 2 is an all-time game for me ever since the release back almost 5 years ago. And maybe it has been 25 years. I don't know anymore. Long time, but and so I was like, you know what? Coming out for consoles, they're re-releasing this remastered edition called Resurrected. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna get it for the Switch. That's kind of where I was at with it. And the first time I played it, I was like, I don't enjoy this. This isn't how I remember Diablo 2. Like it just wasn't with it for me. So I put it down. I was disappointed. Didn't like it. I waited a few months. And they had some updates. And they cleaned it up a little bit. And man, I tell you what, I've played it with a couple different characters online and offline. I absolutely love it. It kind of made me fall right back in love with the game. Nintendo did a tremendous job porting that for the Switch, where initially I picked it up and was like, I think they trashed this the way they did it. Even though it was the same game, it kind of felt akin to playing a Diablo 2 ROM on my phone. Like I just wasn't a fan of how the controls were and the way some of the graphics looked, and things were awfully small looking to me. And then when I played it a few months after that, and I was like, okay, they fixed this, and thoroughly enjoyed it. It's been a lot of fun. That's one I go back and I pick up every once in a while, and it's like, I just want to go loot some dungeons. Why not? But that's what you do with Diablo. That's just those types of games. So no, I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought they did a great job with it. Yeah, definitely a top game for me on the Switch.
All right, so I guess we're in my top three. Again, not really any particular order, but I would say that these three are in some way, shape, or form the top 3 games that I played on the Switch. And we'll go with one that we've spoken about before in Pokemon Legends Arceus.
We did a whole episode on that game. So
did we?
Close to it, man. Because remember we sat there and we were trying to figure out how you pronounce it.
That's true.
And we had to look it up. Remember that?
Yeah. And then I think we were using that as our basis for why there was going to be a Switch Pro too.
Yeah. We've done a lot of episodes on trying to figure out Switch Pro, Switch 2, Switch this, Switch, because I distinctly recall you again. It was really funny. This is a great segue actually, because of what I just said about Diablo 2. I distinctly recall you saying, I don't know, the hardware is kind of underpowered, for this game at the time,
right.
Now where you're at with it now, go for it.
It's still, the hardware is still underpowered for it. It's not the prettiest game in the world, but the mechanics are great. I love, one of the coolest things about the game is you just sneak up behind a Pokemon and smack it in the back of the head with a Pokeball. And then its eyes whirl around in its head, and then it gets caught in the ball. And you don't have to fight it. So I just think it's kind of funny. But I really enjoyed it. The story was great. The gameplay was great. The mechanics were great. It just wasn't the prettiest game in the world. But again, I believe that's going to be one of the games that gets a patch with the Switch 2, where it should improve the performance and hopefully it improves its frame rate, and it just makes it the best version of what it can be.
Yeah, and I think we see that sometimes in some of the games we've already discussed, and I think games that we might end up discussing here toward the end of our pod here, but games that were Wii U games, for example, that end up getting a Switch port turned out being ultimately much better on the Switch because of the improved hardware, because of all the patches that were released. I'm not saying that's the case with every single game. I'm just saying that in Nintendo's case, especially for their primary, titles, where we're talking Pokemon, Zelda, Mario games, that anytime they have a game that's makes one generation of system and moves to the next, that next generation just tends to fix all the bugs and make the just make it a little prettier, a little bit better experience.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, again, like you said, no particular order, top 3, but I'm going to throw down Nintendo World Championships, the NES edition. Well, there's only one edition, but that's the official name of it. So I picked up the whole kit for this one. Came with all the cool pins and the gold NES cartridge and all that. And again, look, there's a battle royale component to this game, but then there's just time trials, and you're just revisiting so many classic NES games, and you're trying to do things as quickly as you possibly can, whether that's in Metroid or Excite Bike or Super Mario 2, any of those, Kid Icarus, Donkey Kong, you name it, classic NES title, it's in there. But it's so fun. And one thing I love about it is that every week it resets with 4 different trials. Now they're already included in part of the main game, but they're how do you rate against the people of the world, if you will, for that particular time. And so when that week finishes, they will show you your results, and it's like, okay, 7,000 people have played this game this week. You rank 2,000, blah, 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 blah. And then it'll also show you how you rate against your people of your birth year, which I think is cool, because it's like, okay, so there are other 40-plus-year-olds playing this. All right, how do we do? Oh, cool. I don't suck as bad as this guy, but I still suck. So, but no, it's really, really fun, and it kind of, rekindled my interest in picking up a couple of games that I hadn't touched in a long time. Playing a lot more Metroid, the original, and just picking up some stuff that I hadn't in a while. I really enjoy it. Again, I don't play it like daily or anything, but I thought that was a great release for them, and especially for how I like to, take in games at times, especially nowadays. I don't have necessarily the time I used to where I could sink in, an hour or 2 or more. Sometimes I have to have it in short spurts. I have to pick up something for 5 or 10 minutes and then I put it back down. And to me, that's perfect release for me. Of course, old school gaming, and just kind of put a nice fresh bow on it. Like, okay, cool, I can compete against people now. I look kind of like it was, except it was face to face 30 years ago or whatever. So,
right. So, all right, my next one is going to be, and I'll put this officially as number 2, Fire Emblem Three Houses.
I'm kind of surprised that's not your number 1.
I went back and forth, and on my list, it's not. On my list, it's number 1, but I just thought about I'll discuss why in a minute, but
okay.
Well, when I get to the number 1. But Three Houses, I definitely got my money's worth. I got the DLC, and I got my money's worth on that. I've played through. I have to have 300 to 400 hours into that game, and that's playing through. There's 4 different routes you can go, 4 different ways you can go with the story, and then there's the DLC on top of it. So you definitely get your money's worth. It's a great campaign. There's twists and turns you don't see coming. The gameplay is fantastic. It's everything that I could want in a Switch Fire Emblem game. And aside from it being, having some of the stuff from Fire Emblem Awakenings, which that's probably one of my favorite all-time games. And obviously so, since it's in the bracket of good, hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. There's a little plug for you. Listen to that episode. But it's such a good game, and it adds stuff to the system that wasn't there before. So definitely worthy of being in the top 3.
Gotcha. Yeah. No. As soon as you threw that idea out to me and Rich, I was like, gotta have Three Houses as number 1 and know it. But I'm kind of glad that you don't, because now you got me thinking. So I'm going to do this then. I'm going to give you my number 1, and maybe we end up convening back on something that's the same. Because I don't think my number 1 is your number 1 at all. Actually, I know it's not. Tetris 99.
It is. No, it's not.
I was just going to say, yeah, I know. I knew it wasn't. Look, I had Super Mario 35 on my list. Tetris 99 is obviously going to be on it.
Right.
No, to me, again, short spurt, but penultimate battle royale game that Nintendo has ever done. And there's still a great, they still do the events every about month, I guess. I don't know where they're at with it at this point, because they've restructured their gold and platinum points and all that junk that they've done. But at one point, I had played that during one of the events, and I had won something physical, which I thought was the coolest thing. It was something small, like keychain or something stupid, but
right.
I won enough points playing just an event that I was able to cash it in for something physical, which I thought was the coolest thing, because I'm like, I've been playing this game for years, and I actually won something out of it. But
finally won.
But I love the fact that you can just, go after people attacking you, go after random people. There's so many different themes now. In fact, Fire Emblem's a theme on it. One of the newer ones is Xenoblade Chronicles, or whatever the newer Xenoblade game is. I really don't know. I don't play those games, but there's Donkey Kong variants, there's Mario variants, there's so many different ones. And it's just that, like I said, it's a quick play. It's funny to see, like, oh yeah, my rank is a 10 star or whatever the heck it is, and how I outrank some people, and then I see other people that are like, hey, I'm a 5 double star, and I'm like, yeah, I suck. Like, it's such a great, such a great game to be like, hey, I'm really good at something, but also very humbling at the same time. And look, it's Tetris, man. That's just what I enjoy. And had I not, been exposed to the battle royale version of it, I would still love the game, but this kind of upped the ante for me, because it gives you a different way to play it. But all right, so yeah, that leaves one on my list, but I'm curious, because I think we're on the same page, but I don't know.
So my number one is Super Mario Brothers Wonder.
Oh, okay. We're not nice.
We're
nice.
Not all right.
No,
No,
we're
I know.
close, though.
Okay,
We're
I know which
close.
one yours is.
Yeah, we're
I know
close.
which one yours is.
Yeah.
But it's just a game. Like when I got it, I didn't really know what to think aside from, oh, cool, it's another Super Mario Brothers side scroller, 2D adventure. It'll be fun, whatever. I don't think I've smiled as much playing a video game in years. It was just such a fun game. Everything about it, all the new stuff, everything was just, it was just cool. There was all these little details that you wouldn't, you haven't seen before in the games. Stuff like the little wonder flowers that talk, and like a Goomba walks by and the little wonder flower goes, huh, I wonder what he tastes like. Stuff like just like goofy little shit that you would never expect to be in a Mario game, and then it's just there, and it's just so much stuff. And I just watched a documentary on it, and they said that they wanted in every level for there to be a surprise and for there to be something to make the player smile. And I think we talked about this when it came out. I believe we talked about some of the things that they wanted to do, but they didn't. Like one of the wonder effect, because in every level you get a wonder seed, or you can get a wonder flower, and a wonder flower makes an effect. It changes the gameplay. And one of the effects that they wanted to have was a real life size human Mario in the game.
Huh.
And they didn't. Obviously, they didn't do it, but it would have been hilarious. And what they would have done is when he jumped and stuff, he would have said "boing," and he would have made all the sound effects himself. And I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. They cut it, but what they did is they made a you can get a I forget what it is that you can get in the game, but it modifies the game so that all the sounds are made by humans.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So that game, it was just so fun. I couldn't not put it at number one.
If they left the human component in, though, that should have been Captain Lou.
It should have been Captain Lou. They would have had to AI him in there. But second, and then if they did that though, they would have to do live action Yoshi, and that's Danny DeVito.
Oh yeah, we know that.
Yeah, painted green, obviously.
No, dude, my kids have played Wonder. I have actually not touched it. Now I need to, because I love the Odyssey so much. Look, it's funny. I just, sometimes I dive into something and I don't dive into the next thing. No, and we've alluded to this, or I did anyway, earlier in this episode, but talking about titles that got a release on the next system, and so I'm going to go Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Booster Course, whatever you want to call it. They've added so many different things to it for the Switch version that it's almost not nearly the same game at this point. So
right.
But no, I played this game in tournaments, so I had to include it. With Katie, we did a lot of father-daughter things with it, which I thought was really cool. Like that, we were able to play like a parent and a child, tournament things with it, several different times, and we won one, which I thought was really cool, because I've never really ever been that great at that game, but I played so much of it at that point in time that I was good enough. So. But no, I thoroughly enjoy it. It's cool because there's so many different tracks, especially with the booster pack. And good Lord, talk about the amount of characters, just even without that. It's just ridiculous. So had to include it. It's just a great entry into the Mario Kart series. Is it the best? Not, it's not. There's other versions. We've talked about one in the bracket of good, wink wink, double dash. But we'll maybe if you're listening to the pod and you haven't listened to that episode yet, you'll have to roll back and listen to that one. But no, really thoroughly enjoy it, and I just think it's a great game. So
now let's see how Super Mario Kart World stacks up with its 48 characters, I think, at launch.
Yeah, it's crazy. And the whole open world thing. But then the The other thing too, I know you wanted to kind of touch on this too, as we kind of we're doing some Switch conversation. We might as well dive into here at the end of the pod. Price point. So as we get into Switch 2 world here, we've got some $80 games or more, and we got some things that are
man,
sounding funny these days.
So obviously the Nintendo, the Switch 2 pre-orders got thrown into a little bit of a blender with the tariffs and everything, and they kind of held off, and then they said, all right, well, let's see what we're going to do. We don't know if it's going to be able to release the same price. And luckily they kept the system at the same price. The games are, I don't believe they raised the game prices from the initial announcement, but what they did is they added money to the accessories. So most of the accessories went up at least $5. Some of them I think went up as much as 10 to 15, but for the most part they kept it pretty easy. But then you have Microsoft.
Yeah.
And Microsoft comes out of left field with, well, starting in December, all Microsoft games are going to cost $80. And not only that, but our systems immediately are going to be going up in price, and basically screw the consumer. Because here's the thing. Yeah, the tariffs suck, and the tariffs are affecting things. And I get that 100%. I understand that when you're shipping stuff over, it costs money, it takes it out of your bottom line, and, whatever. How much of your stock that you're raising the price on now is already here and isn't subject to tariffs?
Yep, or will be.
Right.
That's the other part of it too. It's like, how much are you going to be able to kind of get across before?
Right. So you're just actively screwing your consumer base. So anybody that doesn't have an Xbox currently probably isn't going to have one in the future. I know you were thinking about it.
Yeah,
because you wanted to play Starfield.
Yeah, and I've been wanting to for a while. I just time and money. Obviously, I've been a big Sony guy for years now. But there's Starfield. I'm also a big Bethesda guy, and it sucks that there's right now no tangible release for the PS5, and not in the foreseeable future. So it's like, of course, I was gaming for an Xbox, and it's like, you see the price point now, it's like, I was hoping maybe for a drop. The system's been out for 5 years,
Right.
That's logical. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait, what? Like, what huh? Like,
now, all of a sudden, the PS5 Pro is no longer the most expensive system on the market. The most expensive system on the market is the 5-year-old Xbox Series X with 2 terabytes of storage,
which is crazy. And we've sat here time and time again and have dogged Sony for said things like the PS5 Pro and other items that they've released over the years. But this is just, like you said, out of left field for Microsoft. We've even talked them to a point where it's like, is this the last system they released? Do they just go software at this point? Man, I tell you what, are they trying to do that? Because
well, no, because there's talk of them releasing a handheld. They're talking about releasing a handheld it's basically a Microsoft branded or Xbox branded Steam Deck. And then they're talking about a full-on Xbox handheld in the next generation.
Which is just, I don't know. It's absolutely crazy. I don't know. I don't know if companies come to their senses on certain things. To me, it makes sense if you're releasing another updated version of your current gen system and then adding that cost. Hey, we're going to add, kind of like Sony did with the PS5 Pro. That makes sense. I get that. I'm not going to pay $750 for it, but I get it. I'm not paying that price point for something that I could have paid much less for 5 years ago. So that's just crazy to me. Absolutely crazy. You kind of get back in that, okay, are we getting back into the realm where I might have to start, building out a PC now? because it seems like I could get this hardware for a lot cheaper. So,
right. I mean, and look, at this point, Sony hasn't raised their prices. If they're smart, I would think that they will not raise their prices. Who knows what they'll end up doing? But they have a real opportunity to just put their foot on Microsoft's throat and step down.
yeah.
Matter of fact, they just had the slim disk drive version with Astrobot for $450, which was already undercutting Microsoft by $50. And the same thing with the disk drive, or the digital version they had for $400, which, you know, it was more expensive than the Series S, but still, you're getting a game, and it's just much better. It's a much better value. So right now, if they just keep those prices, you're already better than what Microsoft is doing.
Yeah, and if history, repeats itself, Sony has been known to sit there and take a loss on hardware. Like, this isn't anything that they're not opposed to doing. Like, they know where some of the money lies. If they can make sure they control that. I don't know if the audience is the same as it was back in the that era with PS3, for example, where they were cutting loss basically on the hardware. But look, I wouldn't be shocked if they did it. That's Sony for you. This could be, like you said, this could be putting the screws to Microsoft once and for all.
Now, that being said, I have seen analysts say that they're going to raise their prices too. So
likely, yeah. Let's not kid ourselves.
But let's talk about some good news. So, something that I never thought I'd see in my lifetime: Gears of War is getting. Not only are they getting remastered version of Gears of War Ultimate, which was a remaster, so it's a remaster of a remaster, but it's coming to PlayStation 5.
Yeah, which is wild.
Absolutely, and it's wild. Awesome because not only have you ever played the original Gears of War?
No, I'm not a Gears of War person, so I don't know. This is going to be new for me.
So what's one of the cool things in it is they got rid of the loading screens. Everything is going to be a continuous shot throughout. There's no more loading screens at all. And it's completely remastered from the bottom to the top, and it's coming to PlayStation 5. I will say the one cool thing that Microsoft is doing is, if you own Gears of War Ultimate digitally, you do get, it's called Gears of War Reloaded. You do get Gears of War Reloaded for free.
Oh, that's cool.
If you own it digitally. Now, I don't know if they're coming out with a physical version. I would hope so, because I would really love to own Gears of War physically for my PlayStation 5. But, it's one of those ones that I've got to get. It's a day one for me, so I'm hoping that it's a physical version. Otherwise, I'm waiting for it to drop. I think it's coming out at like $40 or $50 though.
Yeah, I saw the price point, like you said, was not terrible, but I don't know that there's been a few things lately that I'm like, I want to really play it, but I don't know. I don't know if I could stomach $50 for a remaster. So
right, yeah, like I want Oblivion, but I'm not paying $50 for Oblivion.
Exactly. I just saying, like, I don't know, but no, it's cool, man. I'm gonna have to dive in on that, because I really don't know. So for me, that might be like, hey, paying $50 for a new game. So
yeah, that's true. Well, yeah, and that's where, if you've never played, if you've been in the Sony sandbox the whole time and you've never really dabbled with Xbox, but then it's definitely worth it, and I would 100% highly recommend getting it. I will be getting it eventually, whether it's physical, digital, hopefully physical. Crossing my fingers for that, but you never know. So
yeah, man.
The other news we have before we get out of here is a game from the 90s, a failed Sega mascot, if you want to call it that. I don't know if you want to deem it a failed mascot. Echo the Dolphin. They're remastering Echo the Dolphin 1, Echo the Dolphin 2, The Tides of Time. And we're getting a brand new Echo the Dolphin game some point next year.
It's called Pecco the Porpoise.
Pecco the Porpoise.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
No. Yeah. You know what? Not a games that I was ever like huge fan of. I always thought they were pretty, for what they were, kind of like the aquarium type, stuff. But I was never, I don't know, wasn't my cup of tea. So,
dude, they were hard.
Yeah,
the games were difficult.
Yeah.
And did you ever beat it?
No. I never played it enough to really get enough along that I really cared. You know what I mean? I just picked it up and played it for a little bit. And
I remember getting a code to go towards the end of the game, and I actually beat it. And it's funny because I believe the last level was called Welcome to the Machine. And it seemed like most of the levels were named after songs. And obviously there was a Pink Floyd, tilt to it.
Right.
And the music was almost Pink Floyd-esque.
Yeah.
And it was really cool. Like I again, not something I will ever go back and play, but maybe when the remasters come out, I'll dabble, and we'll see what the new game looks like.
And I was going to say, kind of, circling back to where we began this, the original Echo the Dolphin is available on the online Nintendo Switch Genesis. So if you're got a hanker to play some Echo, man, there you go.
That's not a bad idea.
Or Pecco the Porpoise.
Yeah, Pecco the Porpoise it is.